Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week we'll be discussing the 1994 comedy classic, Clerks, starring Kevin Smith and some other guys. For those of you joining us for the first time, each week on the B Movie Club, I discuss certain guilty pleasures and forgotten classics. You can go ahead and go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club, and give us the big thumbs up. You can also go onto our page on YouTube and subscribe. It's totally free. And you can follow me on Twitter at the B Movie Club. If you do all these things, you'll get the latest updates whenever I post a new video, anything else, latest news and notes about the B movie field, okay? Anything else I'd like to just throw out there, if you know what I'm saying. Don't forget to spread the word and tell all your friends, neighbors, homies, enemies. Thank you very much. This week, Clerks. In this movie, our protagonist, Dante Hicks, works at a Quick Stop, kind of a convenience store in the New Jersey area. He's called up early in the morning to cover somebody else's shift, despite the fact that he worked all night at the Quick Stop the night before. He's not happy about it, okay? So he goes, and he has to deal with his wisecracking buddy who works at the video store right next door, Randall. We also quickly discover that he's having some kind of emotional relationship issues. He's got his girlfriend Veronica, who always treats him very nicely, but is kind of nagging him about going back to school and stop being a convenience store worker. But he started talking to his ex-girlfriend, Caitlin, from like 3 years ago, who I guess is very foxy. However, treated him poorly and used to cheat on him all the time. So despite the fact that he's got a nice girl here with him, taking care of him, treating him kindly, he's hung up on his ex-girlfriend, who I guess is now starting to show him interest again, despite the fact they've had this checkered past. So you quickly learn about the ins and the outs of the convenience store industry, the types of customers they have to deal with, all sorts of wacky things. He has a hockey game that he's supposed to play at noon. His boss says he'll show up. Of course, the boss doesn't show up. He's out of town, so now he's stuck. They decide to play hockey on the roof of the store, which just doesn't seem very safe. I mean, a well-placed check and you're going off the side, perhaps? I don't know. Then they leave later in the movie to go hit a funeral. A friend of theirs from high school has recently died in suspicious circumstances. In terms of plot, there isn't a lot going on here. It's just basically the travails of working in a convenience store, doubled down with his relationship issues with the fact that he should be going back to college. He's like 22 now and not working at a convenience store. So all sorts of things. But what really kind of sells this movie is the dialogue, okay? They have conversations, oftentimes quite profane conversations. If bad language is something that bothers you, do not even come close to watching this movie. They drop something along the lines of 91 F-bombs and their derivatives over the course of this movie. There's a lot of references to, let's just say, exotic adult films, okay? Despite the fact that there's no nudity to speak of and like no violence at all, it was initially given an NC-17 rating, just purely based upon the language. They actually had to go to court and sue them to get it lowered down to an R-rated movie. So there you go. So be aware. I watched this movie recently. I hadn't seen it in a few years. When it came out in the theaters, I watched it and I thought it was hilarious. And it was great. Now that I'm a little bit older, a little bit, I'm married, I have children. I still find it very funny, but the language is very gratuitous. What's happened to me lately is I've noticed that there's certain filmmakers where it's like, rather than being particularly clever, they're going to double down on kind of the offensive, the really shockingly profane, you know what I mean? And that's kind of funny, I guess. Some people like that movie Superbad. Not a huge fan. Again, I thought they traded clever for just kind of gross. So it just depends on your personal thing. Clerks is still hilarious. Very hilarious. But there's so much kind of bad language, at the risk of sounding very prudish. So much bad language and so many kind of references to kind of gross things. It's a little off-putting. It's a little off-putting, to say the least. This movie was written and directed by Kevin Smith, who also plays, of course, Silent Bob. To finance this movie, he sold like the majority of his comic book collection. He maxed out like 10 credit cards. He used an insurance settlement for a car that got damaged in a wreck. He borrowed money that was supposed to be used for his college money. Took all his money, spent about $27,000, which obviously isn't that much by today's standards, to make this movie. He was actually working himself at the Quick Stop at this time and was only allowed to film it after the store closed at like 2 a.m. So it would be like he'd work all day at the Quick Stop, and then the moment they closed up, then they'd film like all night, and then he'd have to go home and catch like 2 hours sleep before start working at the Quick Stop again. He did this over the course of 21 days, and towards the end, he was basically falling asleep when they were filming certain scenes. He cast basically friends and family that he knew. He did have auditions, and he did try to cast people that he thought were best for the role. Originally, he was going to play the role of Randall, which is why Randall has a lot of the snappy, fun dialogue. Later, he cast a different actor for that. The story is actually loosely based upon his experiences, his working in a convenience store, and I guess his relationship issues. So he's more of his life is more of the Dante character, the central character. Loosely, the plot is also based upon Dante's Inferno, which is why there are like 9 little kind of vignettes to show the 9 circles of hell. So there you go. See, you're learning these things. Okay. If you watch, there's one guy who literally plays 4 different roles. He was a buddy of Kevin Smith's, who was there just to hang out and give support. And when actors wouldn't show up, they would throw a wig on this guy, or glasses, or something, and make him play those roles. So there you go. If you watch that show, Comic Book Men, which is Kevin Smith's show on AMC, you'll see some of these actors on there as well. So there you go. It all connects. If you know what I'm saying. Eventually he said, okay, I'll be Silent Bob, who wasn't supposed to have any lines, hence he's called Silent Bob. But the actor who plays Jason Mewes, he got, towards the end of the movie, you see that his line delivery was so shaky that at one point Kevin Smith's like, you know what, I'll just say the line. So suddenly Silent Bob has to deliver kind of the poignant message of the movie, okay? And that became kind of his shtick in the upcoming movies, where he would like be silent for most of the movie, and then deliver like one profound like Yoda-like moment. Although by the end of the movies, Silent Bob was getting downright chatty. Okay, he's like giving monologues and speeches throughout the movie. So, what are you gonna do? C'est la vie. What else can I tell you about this movie? Originally, the script called for Dante to actually get killed at the end. They have the scene where Caitlin's taken away, and Dante and Randall are like, okay, we're cool, we're buddies still, I'll see you later, man. And he starts locking up the store, and a burglar's supposed to come in and shoot him, and run off with the money. It's supposed to be kind of a down ending. Kind of in reference to earlier in the movie, they talked about how The Empire Strikes Back is the best movie because it kind of ends in a down note, because that's life, a series of down notes. So that's how they originally were going to do it. And Kevin Smith said the only reason why he did that is because he wasn't sure how to end the movie. So he thought, I'll just throw that in there. Later they decided that was baloney, so they actually got rid of that and just had it end with, okay, we're all cool, I'll see you later. Originally they were actually going to film the funeral scene as well. But just cost of filming another location, hiring other actors, having all these things, they said forget that. We'll just leave it off camera. I was laughing about some of the line delivery. If you watch this movie, it's clear a lot of the scenes were done in one take, if you know what I'm saying. So not all the line delivery is that smooth, as evidenced by the fact that most of these actors have never done anything since. I mean, even Kevin Smith, you only really see him in Kevin Smith movies. Coincidence? I don't know. They spent most of their budget making this movie on the soundtrack. If you listen to it, there are many recognizable acts of the day who contribute songs to this movie. You have like Soul Asylum, Alice in Chains, etc. So that was important. I mean, I'm used to the movies of the 80s where it's kind of like they kind of write songs just for the movie, kind of third-rate musicians and singers singing random songs that you'll never hear again. That's what I'm used to. So I appreciate the fact that they actually took real songs and real music and put that in there. So that's important, I say. This movie actually went on to spawn a sequel, although technically all of the Kevin Smith movies are sequel. They're all part of the same universe, if you will. You've got this movie, then Mallrats, which literally is supposed to take place like the next day. Then you had Dogma. You had Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. You had Chasing Amy. You had, then of course, the true sequel. You had Clerks 2 that came out like 12 years later. In my opinion, I found the movies started to get kind of childish. Like there's a lot more scatological humor. Even more so, you know what I mean? I found myself enjoying them less and less as time went on. I thought Clerks 2 was not particularly very good. It's my opinion. What are you going to do about it? They also spawned a short-lived animated series, Clerks the Series, if you can imagine that. How they could ever turn this movie into a cartoon show for kids, it's beyond me. How does that happen? Who knows? I was also one of those people that was like, I like Jay and Silent Bob in kind of short little doses, kind of comedic. Do they have comic relief in comedies? I don't know. Where they kind of pop in and do wacky stuff. But as the movies progressed, it eventually became, it's all about Jay and Silent Bob. Like I said, they had the movie Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which was all them. So, what are you going to do? As you know, it won all sorts of awards at the Cannes Film Festival, won all sorts of awards at the Sundance Festival. It kind of was one of those movies that kind of kicked off the independent film, marathon of movies that came out in the 90s. Tarantino obviously was very big in this earlier, but you also had Kevin Smith and a few others who made their independent movies and kind of parlayed that into kind of mainstream success. So that's kind of interesting. Clerks is also all over all sorts of like the best comedies lists from Entertainment Weekly. Although interestingly enough, Premiere Magazine called it one of the 20 most overrated movies. So whatever you think, it's definitely a movie geared towards a certain audience. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to sit back and watch this with the local parish priest, with your grandmother, with your children. Definitely not. I don't know. I wouldn't anyway. Do what you're going to do. The movie currently has 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's good. Like I said, it's very funny, but in a very kind of coarse, I keep using the word profane sort of way. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate it. I still enjoyed it, but I can see why some people would be turned off by it. So what are you going to do? Next week, I'm going to be leaving the comedy genre and going to the action-adventure genre. We're going to be doing the 1984 classic, Romancing the Stone. Now, before everybody calls me and says not a B-movie, it's okay. You know what? On the B-Movie Club, we kind of just do what we want to do. Talk about different movies. I try to remember the forgotten classics, but I always like to dip into kind of the remembered classics, if you will. So, Romancing the Stone with Kathleen Turner, with Michael Douglas, Danny DeVito. It's an all-star cast. It is still streaming instantly on Netflix, so rush out and see it. Don't forget to send me any favorite scenes, favorite quotes, favorite parts, favorite actors. I don't know. Any movie suggestions you have, and I might just talk about it on the show. So there you have it. Don't forget to go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Give us the thumbs up. Go to our page on YouTube and subscribe. It's totally free. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at The B Movie Club. as you know, and every episode with totally out of context quote. And here it is. Da 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 salsa shark. We're gonna need a bigger boat. That's one of the lines that's literally was on the trailer for this movie, and it's, in my opinion, one of the weakest lines. But it's like especially focused, because I guess what else are they going to show in the trailer? The rest, every other line has an F-bomb in it, so you do what you got to do. Thank you again for joining us. Next week, Romancing the Stone. Speaking of weird titles, what does Romancing the Stone mean? I don't know. You're romancing a stone? I don't know. Some kind of prison lingo? I can't get it. Anywho, thank you for joining us. Be well.